Hello, my name is Madeliene Schmoll and I'm your host for tonight. Welcome to our first tasting of 2021. It's really good to be back with you. This month has been all about exploring flavour and new worlds of flavour, and tonight's drams are all about delving into that. But before we get started on that, we're going to do a wee bit of housekeeping. All 5 bottles are currently available to purchase in the secret shop link, which you'll have, I can't speak, you will have received an email about. The 35 and the 26 will also both be available in next week's outturn, so don't worry if you miss out on them tonight. If you have any questions along the way, we'll be here to answer them. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to your ambassadors for the evening. So first of all, we have Nicola Young.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
And we also have Jim Coleman.
Hi, gals and guys.
Hi, how are you?
I'm exceptionally well. Effervescent.
Great. Excellent. And last but not least, we have our special guest for the evening, Jamie Morrison from the Glenturret.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, actually. Thanks. Nice to be here.
Excellent. Well, why don't we just quickly run through the running order of tonight's drams and make sure everyone has what they need, and then we can kick off. So we're going to start off with the 26.159, which is chilled chili coriander cocktail, followed by the 112.76, intriguing, enjoyable, and conversational. Next, and this one's a bit of a challenge to say, I have to say, it's 35.285, the Visometrist's Secret Cream Fridge. That's a mouthful right there. Next up, we have the 88.23 Leap of the Magic Fruit Salmon, followed by 16.46 Texas Barbecue Brisket. I think you guys had come up with some food pairings for each one of these. So do you want to run through those quickly? Or
yeah, I'll go first. I think I'm looking at in order dram number 2 and dram number 4 in the order sheet. So with the 112.76, I have paired that with a half pint of Guinness or a full pint if you can obviously find a suitable half pint glass. The reason for that pairing was just because some of the tasted notes that appear on the sheet led to me thinking really about Guinness, the licorice, the blackcurrant notes, Vimto, and so on. And my second pairing is 88.23, and I went for yogurt covered raisins just to emphasise the creamy notes that were coming out in the tasting.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
And mine, I've got the honour of doing the first dram of the evening, and I have chosen Lint's Dark Chili Chocolate. I've been a great fan of chocolate with whiskey, and this one with the notes having green chili and fresh coriander, I thought the chili would come in really well, but I would finish off this dram before going on to the next one with a wee bite of a Turkish delight. The next dram I do is dram number 35, and I've chosen for that is a cheese that I've recently discovered. I really like it, and it's in most supermarkets. It's called Black Sticks Blue. It's a very bright, creamy, mellow cheese with a hint of the irresistible blue. So looking forward to that one.
I can see Rickard to get some chocolate.
I decided to pair the 1646 dram with two things, actually, but two things that can combine into one sort of small plate, if you like. So I went for some chopped chorizo. So it's meaty, it's got a bit of a tang to it, a little bit of spice in there as well. And when your dram's called Texas Barbecue Brisket, that's a no-brainer to have some meat in there. So it works well for me. And the second pairing to put in with the chorizo sausage was alongside Jim, big fan of cheese. So I went for some Mexicana cheese, you know, the one that's got sliced chili through it, because it's a bit spicier and the cheese is quite creamy as well. And I felt that would work really well with a big smoky, but a wee bit of sweetness at the end of this dram. So yeah, that's my pairings. I finished the chocolate though, so I've only got the chorizo and the cheese left.
Well, we'll see when we get there, eh?
Absolutely.
So I think we're just about ready to kick off. Someone has flagged actually that bottles weren't appearing. They should be live now. So you can find them in the shop via the secret link. Going to quickly say hello to Mariella and Anne, who've tuned in. Also Ali. So keep just letting us know how you're doing, which of the pairings you've maybe chosen to pair a food with. If you've chosen something different than we suggested, let us know, and feel free to give us your tasting notes as we go through the evening. But I think we're gonna kick it off with 26.159, which I've been aching to try all day. It's one of my favorite distilleries. So I'll hand it over to you, Jim.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Just a wee couple of notes for everyone. I've always started a tasting with saying to people, there is only one way to drink whiskey. There is only one way, and that's the way you like it. Whether it's a little water, a lot of water, or no water, it's just the way you like it is the only way to drink it. The other thing with the society being an ambassador, I am fair missing the venues. And the members that are regular to there, and the staff, especially Joe and Dean at the vaults, missing them really, really much. But let's now start with what we're here for, is a wee taste of the drams. First one is the chilled chili coriander cocktail, 26.159, a Highland whiskey, from up in Brora, owned by Diageo. And it's got a style that's it's a maritime dram. The style is like sort of seaweedy spicy, which goes along with my chocolate. So it's up to everyone how they want to taste that. Have a wee read of the notes and tell me if you agree or disagree with any of the tasting panel's thoughts. I do love the nose. It is a gentle nose. And it's talking to me, saying, drink me, drink me.
Don't they all say that, Jim?
Some more than others. Some shout it. I'm expecting number 5 to be shouting, drink me, drink me. But yes, that's nice.
This reminds me of something really quite particular, which is interesting. I wasn't expecting it when I nosed it first a couple of days ago when the pack arrived. But there's a street food that I'm quite familiar with, pani puri, and it's like I'm imagining like a small crisp that's got a hole in the middle, and you put hot water in it, and the hot water's got spices and lots of lemon and sort of coriander and chili through it. And when you nose this dram, that it reminds me of that. I mean, obviously the dram's not warm like the food is, but it really reminds me of that. It's got a really quite tangy sort of freshness to it, and I really like that.
Yeah, I can see Chris is getting a little bit of fennel.
Oh yeah. Jamie, like what you were saying, see some of those notes like the coriander and the spices. That there's so many gins out there just now that there's so much of that infusion going on just now. And one of the tasting notes there is gin and tonic, and I can just imagine with all the fragrances that are going on with the abundance of gins available just now. To me, that's one of the top notes that's coming through for me is the gin and the tonic, but one of these newer style gins.
It's got a real freshness to it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Now that you've said that, Nicola, actually, gin and tonic, when you kind of close your eye, give it a nose, you can imagine the same or similar to a really nice sort of well made up gin and tonic with some ice. And that first nose you take of that kind of zing almost.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try now a wee bit of my chili chocolate with it to see if it helps or hinders the dram.
I can't see it.
I'm joining you there.
still a creaminess with that chocolate.
I think it enhances the waxiness of the dram quite a lot. This distillery is known for that quite often, and I don't get it with every one as profoundly, but that chocolate really opens up that waxy flavour for me.
It does for me too. I've always been, but any time that Nicola and I do tastings in the cabin, we've always got chocolate, milk and dark. And it's amazing how many people haven't tried chocolate with their whiskey. And all of a sudden, once they do, then they realise, my, that does go well. And you've got all those different flavours of chocolate as well, sea salt, orange. You can actually pair lots of chocolate with all different flavours of whiskey.
Absolutely. I was going to say there, Jim, that what you said with the salty chocolate, the sea salt chocolate, I'm a big fan of pairing that with particular drams. So I know exactly where you're coming from with that.
I added a couple of drops of water there to mine, just to try and see if it would liven up any further. But the wood notes that came through after adding the water was really enforced. You know, that really heightened up the oaky wood notes.
Yeah, I can see that we're getting quite a few comments about it being a springtime whiskey as well. I think this choice of pairing, Jim, you really nailed it. Like for me, that chocolate and this jam, it's like Easter and springtime, and it's a bit too cold, but it's still sunny, so you're quite happy.
There's a very, I always find it difficult to describe this, but I know what I'm trying to say, but there's a very greenness about this whiskey. Whether it's as fresh oak or it's almost herbal in a way, and that kind of works for me with the notes of the chili and the coriander. That kind of goes hand in hand, doesn't it? But very, very pleasant. A little bit of water opened out a little bit for me. I can see what you mean though, Nicola, about the oak. It kind of heightens it a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I didn't get much woody notes before I added the water. Actually, it didn't really, wasn't apparent to me before I added some drops in.
Dare I say it, that the coriander has slightly left with a bit of water. It's not quite as vibrant, that real easy to find coriander note for me. It's kind of gone a little bit, but still very, very easy going. And I know what you mean by that waxy familiarity that we have from this distillery. It's still there.
The only last thing with this wee dram is if anyone has got themselves a wee bit of Turkish delight, if you take out,
Always.
if you take a wee bit,
I went shopping too early, I think.
If you take a wee bite of your Turkish delight, it'll soothe away the wee nip of the chili chocolate and bring you back down to appreciating the dram just that wee bitty more. You've got that rose water from the Turkish delight.
I love it.
Got some good comments coming in as well. Graham says he loves this one with chocolate. Ian says that he agrees with Anne. He gets a grassy note, which I think we've all kind of said that we get a wee bit of an herbal note, so that's lovely. Jamie would like a bit of Turkish delight. Doesn't have any.
Did you try the Turkish delight, Nicola?
No, my Turkish delight is in the fridge. I forgot to bring it up. So I'm going to get it later. I've still got some of that whiskey left. I'll try it with it later.
Okay, we're doing quite well. Yeah, we're doing quite well for time, Mads. I think we should get Nicola up now.
Absolutely, you said it, Jim. If everyone else is ready, we'll move on to the 112.76. Intriguing, enjoyable, and conversational.
So we've gone on to dram number 2, which is from distillery 112. Now, this tasting, as Mads has already pointed out, we're going to be all about the flavour and about the flavour profiles and discussing these whiskies in that way, which is why it's quite interesting that we've selected some pairings. to go with them to enhance the flavours even further. The Society works on a 12 flavour profile basis, but they're really just broad brush. They're not too finite. They're not trying to pigeonhole the drams the way that maybe in the past regionality has. Regionality's tried to pigeonhole, for example, two regions that come to mind straight away would be Campbelltown and Islay, which try to really fine tune their drams into a certain profile. But at the Society, a nice broad brush, 12 flavour profiles, which aren't to be taken too seriously. You know, they're just there to help. The tasting notes should tell you what you're looking for, but the flavour profiles, they're just a broad guide. So this one's spicy and sweet. 65% alcohol volume, so be very careful. Let's pour it into the glass first of all. I'm just going to get mine in a glass.
It's the highest alcohol of all 5 as well tonight.
It is. So things could go wrong here. There's a widget in this can, so if you've got your Guinness to try with, and maybe half pint. So I'm pouring it just now because I need to let it set for a wee minute or two. There we go.
While you're doing that, I can see that Susie and Richard from Bermondsey Central Bombay mix as a pairing, which sounds like it could be quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Salt might quite work well.
Yeah, so whiskey can be complemented with many other things, chocolate, cheese, as we've all kind of alluded to there. But my personal favourite to drink with a whiskey is a beer or a lager chaser. That's always how I like to drink my. If I was to go to the pub, or when we used to be able to go to the pub or the bar, or
what's a pub?
What is a pub? I know. Yeah. Then my favourite would always be a half and a half. However, I thought it might be quite interesting to spice this one up a wee bit and give it a bit of Irish flavour, so that's why I opted for the Guinness. This distillery, 112, actually has the most Society numbers attributed to it. It is famous for being able to create multiple different styles from the one distillery. But as we know at the Society, it's the cask really that does most of the work. The stills create the style, the profile of the whiskey, but the cask then does the job. This is a second fill bourbon barrel. It's been in there for 13 years. Now, this distillery would normally, regular profile would be quite fruity, but the tasting notes on this one has almost went over to the dark side. You know, it's all really dark fruits, licorice, Vimto, all those dark notes. So my Guinness has just about settled. Another wee minute or two. So just get some. Yeah, I know what you're. Yeah, so some of the members there. Somebody's saying about it could be confused with a rum cask. Toffee apples. Yeah, definitely agree with toffee apples for sure.
I'm going to be touch of an allotment.
Yeah, somebody else just put that up there as well. A wee bit farmyard.
But like the first dram, I said the nose was saying to me, "Drink me, drink me."
Yeah.
This nose is saying, "Away and sit in a corner and keep sniffing." Because it's got a great nose.
Yeah. So if these lovely straight neck styles have produced the style, then this second fill bourbon barrel has definitely added a lot more to it for sure. And then obviously the spirits manager at the Society and the tasting panel have then decided when to bottle this for the members. Right, so I'm going to go in. And then cheers, everyone.
Oh, you do get that farmyard on. I certainly get it. It was very sweet on the nose for me. Now it's probably burst into that allotment, not grubby, but a wee bit of maybe potting soil or something like that.
There's a real green apple, sort of citrusy for me.
I think, I mean, it's very conversational. I mean, as the title would suggest, you know, it feels super complex for such a young whiskey. It feels there's just a lot going on in my mouth. I've got notes and everything. It's really busy in there right now.
The whole palate's tingling.
Yeah. But then, I mean, we must add a couple of drops of water. It's at 65%, you know, so we're getting a lot of alcohol there just now. So we really probably should add a few drops just to see if it changes at all.
The water certainly mellows the nose down a wee bit.
Fizzy Vimto, absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Diana's quite a good comment about texture as well, that it kind of with the dark beer, it smooths right out and makes it a wee bit slippery, which in terms of mouthfeel, definitely. I didn't notice that straight away, but as soon as you said it, yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's just, and I know that it's the high alcohol, but the menthol notes that are going through my mouth and up my nose, you know, but I know that that's because of the super high. But it's still a great whiskey sensation.
It's very cleansing for a finish, isn't it?
Certainly on the tasting notes, it's saying mouth drying. I'm not getting too much mouth drying.
So did anybody out there manage to get a can of Guinness? Try it with? Surely I'm not on my own here.
No, you're not. As you already said, I should have had a half, and I just poured the whole one, just because.
I'm going to be controversial here and say that, Nicola, rather than Guinness, I'm going to agree with Chris here in the comments and say that red ale I might be tempted to try with it, because Guinness, I've tried many times, but just me and Guinness are my friends.
I do like a Guinness. I love a cold Guinness, but it needs to be freezing cold, and I can only probably have one.
Okay, is that because it's like a full meal?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I like those licorice notes. Yeah, porter. Diane said Guinness, but a dark porter. I did whether to get a wee stout, a wee black heart stout. I thought maybe.
A wee Mackeson?
Yeah, I nearly did.
We've got Philip with another red ale as well. So it seems like a lot of different pairings tonight. Peter, I do agree with you. I think you do get a slightly tastier, but maybe it's environment. You know, maybe it's just being in the pub.
Yeah, Madge, you're 100% right, because a Lefroy doesn't taste any better than what it does at Lefroy. You know, it's just one of those things. It must be the same for Guinness. Guinness doesn't taste as good unless it's drunk in Dublin. So maybe it's something to do with that.
I'm maybe going to go out on a limb here with this, but see if you like cranberry sauce, and you've now just bear with me for a minute, but you've had the cranberry sauce for Christmas dinner or whatever, and then a couple of days later you've still got a wee bit of that left, and you heat it up, and it just kind of doesn't taste quite as fresh, but it's quite strong berry note. It's quite interesting. That's that smell when I bring it out of the pan and I'm putting it on the plate. That's
I actually
it's
exactly
interesting.
what you mean. It's kind of like if you make like if you've ever had like duck and cranberry sauce or duck and red currant sauce, like stewed red currants, it's that kind of meaty red currant smell.
Mm-hmm. So I'm glad I wasn't on one there.
It's amazing how different Dram 1 and Dram 2 have been. I mean, both kind of similar age bracket, both from a second fill bourbon barrel, but completely different drams. And they're both, I mean, it just shows you with the flavour profiles, they're both regionalised as Highland. That really tells you nothing. Nothing at all, because they're completely different.
Indeed. We've got Chris Watson's getting an after 8 minty chocolate note, which is an interesting one. I'd be curious to know what beer, if you had a beer pairing, Chris, what it was. And B. Nicola has got an Innis and Gun, which is one of my favourites.
Oh, absolutely. I can see what Chris means by, now again, out on a limb here, but see when you open up the box of After Eights for the first time and you get that, it's almost like it, yeah, I can totally see what you mean now that you've said After Eight. I used to work in a restaurant where we gave After Eights out like after dinner or whatever, with coffees. And that smell when you open up that box, I'm getting taken right back to opening numerous boxes of After Eights now that he's mentioned that. That's fascinating.
And Joel's asking which dram we're on because he got held up at work. So Joel, we're on the second dram, the 112.76, intriguing, enjoyable, and conversational.
Yeah.
Intriguing for sure.
And conversational, that's for sure.
I think you could talk about this one all night.
I know. I don't think I could drink Guinness all night though.
Well, I think with that, if everyone's ready, it might be a good time to move on to the 35.
Yes, 35, 285. The Viscometrist's Secret Cream Fridge. Who the hell thinks up some of these names? Because that's a belter.
That's a good one.
Anybody ordering that, the first thing they'll do is go to the dictionary to find out what fridge means.
Put me on my misery, Jim. What's a misometrist?
It's someone who studies viscous liquids.
Oh, okay. Viscosity, okay.
All right.
Nice one. Oh, yeah.
So this one is Speyside, our first Speyside of the night. Is it the only Speyside? No, the first Speyside of the night from up in Elgin. This distillery is well known for its wine finishes, and it's a distillery that, believe it or not, is one of Nicola and I's favourites. And its style, it's an aperitif style of whiskey that normally comes out of this distillery. So let's have, I hope somebody's got some nice blue cheeses to have a wee slice at with this. But that again, that's a mellow, easy, juicy nose.
Whiskey Julian says it's like pick and mix, and I would tend to agree with some of the sweet comments that have come in. It's very much like pick and mix.
Yeah,
I'm getting a wee hint of a wine on it.
I was thinking wine gums.
I was thinking a Chardonnay.
yeah, I'm with Vanessa Murray, who thinks bubblegum. Bubblegum was the first note that I got on the nose for sure. But that synthetic sweetness.
Fruit salad, chewy sweets, absolutely.
Yeah.
Purple violets. Now, what's this nose saying to everyone? Cream soda. That's spot on as well. American cream soda from bars.
Do you know there's some tasting notes here from the bottle that does mention like rose water. So if you've still got a bit of that Turkish delight left there, then maybe it's worth a comparison.
Comparison with that, yes.
Just to see if it complements it, brings it out further, possibly.
So,
the 35 distillery is definitely one of my favourite single cask from the society. The society they tend to produce quite a lot of 35s, thank goodness, because it's consistently a fantastic single cask. Yeah.
excellent spirit all the time.
Yeah, the majority of, well, not the majority, but a lot of the society bottles that I do own in my own personal collection are 35s. I just find them fascinating.
And Mike's actually paired this with a mature Isle of Mull Cheddar which I think would be another really interesting pairing to
Yes.
try.
I don't know if any of you have come across black sticks as a cheese, but I'm going to open up the packet and have a wee slice. I'll keep you some, Nicola. Not
What does it look like? What does the packaging look like? Oh, right, okay. I think I have seen them.
Okay. We've got a few folks saying that it reminds them of dessert wine. So Will says it reminds him of Tokai, and Chris Watson says dessert wine. Anyone else getting those notes?
So Madge, was this 35 fully matured for the full 8 years in the ex-bourbon barrel, or did it have an extra maturation or anything, or do you know? Just with so many people mentioning wine.
Well, I got the Chardonnay, the very light white wine.
No, yeah, no, it's full maturation. I've just been told full maturation. I was just wondering, just with so many wine notes coming through on people's tastings.
There's an elegance to it, isn't there? That I see what you mean with you're picking out wine from it. There's something about it that makes you. You shouldn't say things like this, but there's something about this that makes you go, "Oh, I could have another one of them." Actually, it's very, very easy drinking.
I mean,
even at the high strength.
It's a wasp wine of water is all it needs.
Yeah, tiny amount.
Give that a try now.
What I enjoy about this flavor profile, juicy oak and vanilla, is that you get a lot of wood, but you also get that kind of that vanilla sweetness. So the wood is never so heavy or chewy that you can't temper it a bit of the sweetness, which makes it a very enjoyable dram for sitting and pondering and thinking about what you get from it.
It's very well balanced.
Yeah, again at 59.6% alcohol by volume, it is so easy drinking. This could really sneak up. And all of a sudden, your legs don't work.
Responsible drinking. Come on now.
That's it. Yeah, responsibly, of course.
Responsibly not working, yes. But
I'd be curious.
That's a sipping delight.
I think as well, it's one of these things where don't feel you need to drink all of these drams just now as we work our way through them. Come back to them throughout the evening because we'll change in the glass, especially with adding water and sitting out in the room and warming up a bit as well. So come back to them before you decide you have a firm favourite because it may change.
Yes. Well, I must admit, I'm really enjoying that with the cheese. I don't know if anyone else is. Jamie, did you have some cheese?
I tried it with a bit of the cheese, and the creaminess of the cheese works quite well with that vanilla sort of soft sweetness. Yeah. But I was thinking at the end there, or just as it's getting finished off in the palate, there's it's not stringency is not the right word, but there's a long lasting and it's almost coconutty. Now I drink coconut milk and almond milk rather than cow's milk, and the coconut milk I can see if you were to make like a Chinese or a sort of Japanese or Thai style curry, that kind of coconut cream that you would get. I can get that in the back of the palate. Now I don't know if that's because of the cheese was coming for the creamy texture, but it works really well together, I must say. Big fan
I'm
of
enjoying the cheese. And I still have a wee bit of Turkish delight left to ponder.
You're just teasing us now, Jim.
I know.
Well, Ali says she's on the same wavelength as you, Jim. This plus a cheese board.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're not alone.
But yeah, it's a delight. And of the first three, I don't know if I could pick a favourite yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
No.
Don't think I could pick a favourite yet.
No. When we had that very small window of when the society opened up in Glasgow in the end of February there, 2020, and we had like 2 weeks that we were able to enjoy a society in Glasgow. After many years of campaigning to get a society in Glasgow, We had 2 weeks, and they did a fantastic. They were only doing light bites for the first 2 weeks, and they did a fantastic cheese board with some whiskey pairings. It was excellent, really, really excellent. So I did manage to maybe squeeze 2 of them in before the shut.
Well,
So how we doing for time, Mads?
We're absolutely fine. I was actually just going to talk about votes because for those of you who joined the Facebook event, we actually asked which drams were going to be, which ones were you most anticipating trying. So the first 3 drams were pretty neck and neck, actually. The 26 had 7 votes, the 112 had 5 votes, and the 35 had 6 votes. So I'd say they're pretty neck and neck. I know some members were saying that they'd like to try the drams blind before making their decision. So I'm curious to see what everyone thinks at the end of the night, but also by all means, go ahead and let us know in the comments just now if there's a forerunner for you and one that you definitely love. I think for me, I'm probably not going to change anything here, but it's 26, which it isn't always 26, but it is 26 for me tonight so far.
Mads, have you not already admitted it's one of your favourite distilleries?
Yeah, I have. It's not always my favourite, just a lot of the time. What do you guys think? What has there been a standout one for you so far?
I'm with Mads. 26 is leading the way for me at the moment, but that could change.
I think for complexity, it was the 112.
Mm-hmm. For the conversation.
Yeah.
I think my initial first go-to out of the first 3 would be 26 initially, just because it's a profile in the nose and the flavour was something I really resonated with. But I agree with you, Jim, that for complexity, I would go with the 112.
Yeah.
But the ice question, sorry, somebody asked a question. I was going to say something and then I got distracted. Sorry. Ice. I'm always ice is the same as Jim said at the beginning. Ice and water, do whatever you want with your whiskey once you buy the bottle. Nobody's going to arrest you for putting a bit of ice or a bit of water in it. But I mean, for me, it depends. I would be more tempted to put ice in a bourbon casked dram than I would be a sherry casked dram, because the flavour profile of sherry maturation is warming. It's meant to be spicy and give you that sort of heat. So by putting ice in it, you could almost take something away from how it's intended to be, but it's entirely preference. I mean, nobody's going to say anything to you. I think to echo what Jim said at the beginning would be my answer to that, but I don't know about you guys.
Well, I think that if you've got a nice sipping whiskey, you shouldn't put ice in it, because you put that couple of cubes of ice in it and you're sipping away slowly but surely. Every sip is different because it's getting more and more diluted, and you end up at the end of the sipping session with a wee puddle of pale, watery liquid at the bottom of the glass.
You know, it does not take you that long to drink.
Well, if somebody wants a nice iced or a chilled dram, put the bottle in the fridge for an hour or 2.
Mm-hmm.
And
whiskey
then just
stones, maybe.
Well, whiskey stones, I've seen people thinking it's blocks of ice and putting a whiskey stone straight into the glass and it goes right through the glass.
There's always that. You're right.
I wouldn't think twice about adding ice to a rye, a bourbon, even an Irish blended whiskey. Maybe I'd still add ice to it. I don't think if I was having like a blended Scotch with a mixer, like a ginger ale or soda, then yes, I would definitely add ice. But I don't think I would add ice if I was drinking it neat or with a couple of splashes of water. I don't think I would. But I'm not adverse to putting ice in all the other whiskies.
Yeah, I'd add ice certainly to some bourbon cocktails, your old fashions, your whiskey sours and all that. But I wouldn't use a nice malt to make an old fashioned with to add ice.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be.
But then I wouldn't tell someone not to do it either, you know. So
No. Again, it's your whiskey, it's your bottle, you own it. You do what you want with it and drink it how you like it. Really, that's the end of the story. You must drink the whiskey the way you like it. not the way people try to tell you. You get all these people saying the only way to drink whiskey is neat. You must drink it neat. Bollocks. It doesn't have to be neat. It'll be the way you want it to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's almost an old school viewpoint about that, isn't there? This sort of, the only thing you should put in whiskey is more whiskey, son. But it's I completely agree with what you guys are saying. It's always an interesting question.
When obviously we're dealing with single casks here, and the 112.76 was 65% alcohol. You need to cut that down. You must cut that down in order to taste the flavors, because you're not, like what we were saying, that menthol sensation that was through the mouth and up and in the nose, that won't disappear unless you cut that down a bit. You need to cut it down in order to appreciate the flavors that are in there. So a single cask strength bottling probably requires water more than a 40% distillery proprietary bottling. So there's water for some, no water for others, ice for some, no ice for others. It just depends.
I remember doing a water tasting with whiskey. I think it was with the vaults, where we had like your bottled water, your spring water, tap water, and the one that came out on top was tap water. Mm-hmm. Better than some of your branded named bottled waters that some of them charge fortunes for.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Certainly you're around Glasgow, the Loch Katrine water is as good as you're going to get to add to a whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think we're quite lucky in that respect, aren't we? That the water quality in Scotland is really, really good.
Yeah.
Definitely, and I think it all comes down to personal preference at the end of the day. The things that I learned from a member who's doing one of our tastings earlier this year was that they take the samples and actually split it in half, just so that if they add the water and they don't like it, they still have a version of it, without the water to go back to, which is a really common sense thing, but not something that I'd thought of doing. So I'm actually trying that style tonight so that I can go back without water if there's any I prefer without water.
Okay, so I think we're going to move along.
Yes.
Dram 88.23, so back to me. Now, just before this name, if anyone has any understanding of what a fruit salmon is, if they could enlighten me, because when I read that name, I was like, and I'm reading through the tasting notes, I'm thinking, where has this came from? This fruit salmon?
But it's a magic fruit salmon.
Fruit salmon. So if anyone can let me know what a magic fruit salmon is, I would love that. Now, I've been looking forward to trying this whiskey since I started doing a wee bit of research on the distillery and the tasting notes and the dram itself. Now, I can see from the tasting notes that it was 10 years in a bourbon barrel, and then its final 2 years, it was in rye, a rye hogshead.
Yeah, first fill, yeah.
Out with Scotch, I'd probably say rye is my next favourite whiskey that I enjoy to drink with ice in it. I do enjoy rye with ice. So this one has been really intriguing for me. And also with the tasting notes that I've read here, and also that I've selected to try it with some yogurt-covered raisins, just because quite a lot of the tasting notes were kind of sweet but milky, and quite fruity as well, but not fruity like the first dram, not fruity like all those dark forest fruits. But this one was more tropical, like apricots and mangoes. And when you think the yogurt flavouring goes really well with all these really soft, fleshy fruits. So I thought that would be quite a nice pairing. Plus the raisin itself working well with the rye. I was hoping that was going to really pull out some of those rye tasting notes. I can't actually think if I've had a rye cask Scotch before. I don't think I have. It's something quite unusual. So I'm going to have to go in the raspberry note's quite high for me. That kind of a bit tart, but so sweet and very, very well balanced. You know, it's not complicated at all. It sits quite nice in the palate, quite smooth. And I get that kind of milkiness. It's like strawberry milkshake or something. It's kind of, if anybody managed to get
White mice.
yogurt raisins, if anybody managed to get any.
I couldn't find them anywhere. I didn't have luck. I've got chocolate covered ones, but I don't think that's quite the same.
I'd even think a wee bit of white chocolate would probably work.
Mm-hmm.
A wee bit of white, just something creamy and vanilla. But yeah, no, it definitely works for me. If anybody managed to try.
I totally get those sort of fleshy fruits, almost like the fruit salad. And
Yeah.
Again, I feel like I'm going out on a limb all the time here, but I'm thinking like a creaminess, almost like I don't condensed milk kind of
Yes.
creaminess.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as runny. It's a bit thicker, especially on the palate. The fruitiness is sort of tempered a little bit, and you're left with that sort of all mouth coating.
Yeah, no, Jamie, I absolutely agree with you on that. 100% on that tasting note. Now, this is a bit gentler, I suppose, on the palate at 54% ABV. It's not quite as attacking as some of the other ones that we've had, so it's a bit more. It's mellowed slightly. And only, oh my goodness, only 208 bottles of this as well. But this is from a Speyside, which obviously the last dram we had was Speyside, and again, you know, two regions side by side, and really no comparative points at all. But what about the rye? Is the rye? Can you get it? Is it there? The rye for me is quite vanilla and coconut. I get lots of vanilla and coconut on rye.
Yeah, I get vanilla.
When you inhale after the first little taste, I get the rye, but it dissipates quite quickly. And I've just noticed there that Joey, I would absolutely agree with him in what you just said there as well about coconut. Coconut with Caribbean fruitiness. I don't think you would. Hopefully, I'd say that's a fairly accurate note. But the rye, it's interesting. It's there, but not. If you're going to drink a rye whiskey, you'll know what to expect. Whereas it kind of creeps, as you mentioned earlier, I think in one of the other drams, it creeps up on you.
Yeah. So this is from a not a particularly well known distillery that you would class as that would be synonymous for older whiskies or expensive whiskey. In fact, I mean, this is only the 23rd cask of this that we've had, and that's went past the panel. Now that just might mean that we haven't had that many sent to us, not necessarily that the rest have all failed, but only 23 casks. But it's a great example of what a whiskey that would normally be between £20 and £30 in the supermarket. You know, when you put it into a single cask, it's just. And then, obviously, the team at the Society have decided to put it into rye thereafter for 2 years. You know, the difference in that single cask is amazing. If you were to taste it side by side with its supermarket version, it would be completely non-recognisable, I'm sure.
Yes.
A question as well about the maturation on this one. So it was 10 years in an ex-bourbon hogshead and then 2 years in a rye cask.
Yeah, I did mention that at the start, that it was 10 and 2. Just in case anyone thought that it was the full 12 in rye.
Yeah, certainly there's a Caribbean punch with all the fruit floating on top.
I get a lot of the apple-y notes. So someone mentioned Calvados, and since then I'm just getting every kind of apple dessert, tarte tatin with vanilla custard and crème anglaise and all of those lovely kind of French appley desserts?
I might have to readjust what was my favourite so far.
Well,
Did anyone manage to get any yogurt raisins? Any of the members manage to get any? Try it out. Really good. It works well.
Well, we've got an interesting question from Damien. If there was suddenly a fire, which one of the bottles behind you would you save? Ooh.
I'm going to say 26 because it's the closest to me.
I've got so many. Honestly, there's all my babies up there. I would just have to try and grab as many as I could.
I'd just sit there drinking them until I burn.
Aye, that's a fair shout, Jim.
I've been collecting society drams for a long time, so quite a lot of the ones behind me, they've maybe been with me for about 12 or 13 years. So I don't know if I could let them burn.
What a fire that would be.
No, I know.
I don't think I've ever been asked that question before. That's a great question.
It's like asking what child would you save?
Aye, that's a tricky one. Like,
It is, yeah. Well, on that note, are we ready to move on to the final dram? Are you ready, Jamie?
you're ready as I'll ever be, yeah? Right? Why not?
Ready to ever be? Well, then we'll move on to the 16.46, which is Texas barbecue brisket.
So, what I wanted to do is tell you a little bit about the brand that I work for, and then I'll move into having a little chat to you about this rather smashing dram we've got here. So, I work for Glenturret Distillery, Scotland's oldest working distillery since 1763, and we're based in the sort of rural Perthshire Hills, if you like, just outside Crieff. And I want to talk to you briefly about three things that are fundamental to what we do at the Glenturret. And those three things are provenance, passion, and prowess. And these are three words that I wasn't completely familiar with when I first looked at them either. But when you break provenance down, what is it? It's history, it's the history of the place, and it's the history of the people. When you look at prowess, which is skill or mastery or craft, what you're looking at there is everything that we stand for at Glenturret. So it's completely manual operated distillery, no witchcraft and wizardry involved. Last fully open hand operated mash tun. And then passion is passion for spirit that we create, and passion for having a good time with good friends and good drams like we are now. So I wanted to go through a little bit about that with you. And at Glenturret, we produce about 200,000 litres of alcohol per year, and we're in the unique position where that includes both peated and unpeated spirit through the same set of stills, which is quite unusual in the distillation world in Scotland. So we brought a new range of whiskies last year, and I'm sure you can go and find out about them if you wish to. And we're looking to modest increase in production over the next few years. But one thing we'll never do is sacrifice quality for quantity. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about why I think the Glenturret is quite special. So when I say manual, I mean completely manual. There's no computers unless you count the calculator in the still house, for example. And the guys that work at the distillery, we've got 6 stillmen, and they really have to be connected to the distillery. What they're doing is manual, it's hands-on, and they understand the inner workings of each and every valve and what pipe goes where, and they can tell what's going on in a room just by listening. The sound of the flow, the heat in that room, they can tell exactly what's going on. And for me, that really puts over what is really important about the Glenturret. It's the passion and being connected to the distillery. Now, this dram in particular is an interesting dram, as well as the other 4, of course, have been very interesting so far. But let me tell you a little bit about the provenance of this dram, if you like. So we started producing peated spirit only in 2009 from Glenturret. So you're looking at about 10, 11 years ago from now. And part of the reason, the main reason, if you like, for starting to produce peated spirit was for a fulfilment. It was going to be part of a constituent of a blended whisky. And that blended whisky has a smoky character. So we are producing quite a heavy peated spirit at Glenturret, and the barley that we're using is spec'd to about sort of between 80 to 120 parts per million of phenols. So you're getting something that's quite smoky. And what we know from working with our malting partners, one of which is Simpson Malts down in Berwickshire, is that they do things a little bit differently in terms of their peating process. As we know, usually what we would see is the peat coming into the process of barley processing, if you like. Sorry, confused with the words there. Is that the barley would be in the still quite wet. The moisture would be quite wet. It's about 50% moisture when you would start to blow smoke, and that would permeate right through into the endosperm of the barley, and then you would get quite a heavy peated barley. What Simpsons do is they dry the barley right down to more or less how it would be delivered to the distillery. They then decant off what we ask them to, and they blow smoke at it through a chimney. So if you can imagine, they're taking the peat from various different places, so you're getting lots of layers of complexity in terms of the smoke coming through on this dram in particular, and you're not getting sort of one style of peat, because as we know, peat can have variance depending on where its geography, the climate, etc., etc., even its composition, if you like. So that peat that peat burns very wet. And when I say burn, it doesn't really burn, it smoulders, if you like, for about 40 to 50 hours to get it to the spec we're looking for. And what you're looking for there is a really heavy smoke, but it's a smoke that's derived from peat, but it's not a peaty smoke that you're getting. It's more of an ashy sort of coal fire sort of smoke. And for me, at 6 years old, this is a really good example from the distillery. So I love the name as well, Texas Barbecue Brisket. Does that not just entice you right in and want you to have a wee nose and a wee taste? But Stephen Williams, please could you explain recharred hogshead? So in terms of recharred hogshead, at the time when this would have been put into a cask, you have to understand that the purpose of creating or laying down peated stocks was to fulfill a requirement for a blended whisky predominantly. So what you were looking for was something that wasn't too wood driven. So you weren't looking for a massive amount of cask additive in maturation. What you were trying to do was emphasize the smoke element of it. Rather than the various different things that can come from the cask. So in terms of the recharred hogshead, by recharring it, it would emphasise that smoky character, but it also helps to remove or helps to temper some of the more spicier characters that you would get from a cask as normal. So one of these things, for example, could be when you're rejuvenating that cask or recharring it, there's certain things that won't sort of rejuvenate themselves, if you like. So things like, for example, certain chemicals inside oak, sort of lactons, etc., for example, they'll not come back when you rechar that cask. So you're tempering the spicy elements coming from the cask, and you're almost helping to emphasize the smoke, if that makes sense. And for me, for this dram in particular, I don't think I've ever seen a more appropriate name for this dram, for a dram of this nature. So for me, on the nose, straight away, if we go in for a nose, you're getting that smoke. Now, when I say smoke, it's slightly, as the official notes from the tasting panel describe, you're getting an almost medicinal note. And for me, it reminds me of this is hopefully this will translate, but it reminds me of almost that sort of first walk into a hospital ward. You're getting that almost slight antiseptic note from it, and again, but the wood smoke's not dominant. There's a lot going on. Even for 6 years old, there's a lot going on. And again, the smoke comes in, you're getting a bit of, dare I say it, almost like a jerk sort of spice coming through for me. And I'm thinking, I don't know if that's just me coming into my own in terms of the brisket with a bit of sauce on it, but I'm thinking that you're getting, there's a sweetness there as well. And I don't know if it's not vanilla. It's almost, dare I say it, peri-peri in nature. It's a slight spicy, but there's something really interesting going on with it. And for example, I love the peated spirit that Glenturret produces. We do produce it for just 4 or 5 months of the year, if you like, and then we will switch back to unpeated spirit, if you like. But there's not been an awful lot of releases of peated spirit from this distillery. So the fact that the society have brought out this bottle for me is as a triumph. And I'm really enjoying the nose on this one. A couple of comments. Glad you're agreeing there, Alexander. That's good. Menthol heat, but with burnt red onion flavour. Yeah, I can actually see what you mean there, Chris. Yeah, almost like caramelised in a way. Brings you back to that barbecue, doesn't it? That sort of charred caramelisation. Whiskey Julian, maiden release. So this is what our new releases, maiden release, we've called them, the 2020 maiden release, and they're being positively received on the whole, we hope, which is great. Can't believe this is the cheapest bottle of the night. Well, that's the thing, Peter, sometimes price don't always go by price, I suppose, but I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's hiding the ABV on the nose. Yeah, 64.9 is quite strong. Interestingly, at that point, under our previous ownership, we would have been filling casks at 69.9% ABV. Recently, we now fill at 63.5 because we feel that works better in our warehousing and for the type of spirit that Glenturret has. So, Joey, I'm in heaven. Good smoker. Not getting the iodine reminds me of the aroma on my clothes. Bonfire night. Yeah. I see what you mean. I've got a fire pit outside in my garden, and although your garden's the only place you can go at the moment, right enough, isn't it? But the fire pit, when you're sitting with a jacket on, I get what you mean, and you come in, and the next morning, all you can smell in the house is that almost that wood smoky, and yeah, absolutely understand. Anyway, I'm going to go in for a wee try because I could talk to you forever about this dram, I suppose, but let's have a wee try. So, slange to you all.
Sandra?
I've got a really nice barbecue that's sitting in a hospital car park with one of the ward windows open. You're getting all that medicinal, the first aid box.
First aid box is a good shout, yeah. Do you know, with some peated numbers, big heavy smoky numbers, you get an almost TCP. Mm-hmm. And I know somebody said iodine, but it's more on this. Germaline, good shout. Yes, thank you, Germaline. Even though it's 64.9 for me, it's not overly spirity. You're not getting an awful lot of alcohol heat from it. It's quite well balanced, and the sweetness, it's subtle, but it's there on the finish. It kind of, the smoke almost dissipates away, and you're left with, and as you're saying, a slightly medicinal school nurse's office, absolutely, and a wee bit of sweetness on the back. Now, if you managed to grab any of the pairings that I put forward for this, I am a big fan of chorizo anyway, but for me, the chorizo, it adds a little bit of salinity to it. And it works really well with that sort of barbecue smoke, with that idea of being outdoors. And because of the salinity with the chorizo and the slight spicy, it goes well with this dram. It balances itself out because the dram's got a bit of sweetness, not the sort of salty peat bog water sort of peat, but the more big, bold, smokier note. And it works really well with the chorizo. And for me, I love a bit of spice. So for me, I went with the Mexicana cheese, the two of which as a charcuterie work fantastically well. Give it a try if you haven't. But the cheese for me adds a little bit of creamy depth, and the spice, the chili in the cheese really, really emphasizes the finish for me. Very, very well balanced. So yeah, really, really enjoying this one actually.
Well, the other image that comes to mind is matron in her full uniform being in charge of the barbecue.
I wasn't going to, but I really have to. Ooh, matron. I had to. Sorry. Yeah. So in terms of how we process through the distillery, because we're quite a small distillery in the grand scale of things, 200,000 litres per year, as I briefly mentioned, it makes us quite nimble, and it makes us quite easy to change things around. So in terms of the changeover from unpeated to peated, if you like, we can do that relatively easier. There's sometimes a little bit of a crossover, but we change the cut points, of course, to keep more of those phenols in there and more of the sort of smokier characteristics. But again, at Glenturret, something that we're very proud of is the craftsmanship, if you like, and nowhere, for me anyway, is that shown more than at the sample safe at Glenturret. So we've all seen a sample safe where the cut points are made, usually the last part of the process you'll get to learn as an apprentice or as a new employee in a distillery. And at Glenturret, we're very proud to say that we still do that by hand. So a skill that's been passed down generation to generation, and custodian of the Glenturret to custodian, if you like. And something that if you were to get that wrong by 10 to 15 seconds, the difference would be nosed and tasted in our new make spirit profile. So it's really quite important that that cut is made absolutely on point, and the guys are using your hydrometers, thermometers, clarity, colour, smell, etc., just to make sure that that is absolutely crystal clear. So for those of you who haven't been at the distillery, we've only got 2 stills, so relatively small operation. We've got 1 wash still, quite a bulbous sort of based wash still, quite wide at the bottom, encourages lots and lots of copper reflux. And then we've got a big, what I would class as a large boiling ball in the middle, again encouraging reflux, creating a nice lighter, softer, elegant spirit profile. And the spirit still relatively small as well, and the line arm pointing upwards slightly, so again, lots more interaction with the copper. And yes, spirit-wise at Glenturret, although we create 2 different types of spirit, they are individual in their own right, but they do have characteristics that are familiar or common to the Glenturret. So you'll always get a little bit of an oily texture to our new make spirit, and there is also tends to be that sort of fruity, sort of estery type note. And for me, that's definitely coming from our elongated fermentation. You're looking at about 90 to 100 hours for fermentation. Now, as we know, most of the conversion of alcohol, sugars to alcohol, happens after about 48 to 50 hours or so. And then we're leaving that to produce these lovely congeners, these lovely sort of sweety lemon, apple, sort of citrus, fresh notes that come in through the spirit. So, yeah, I could talk to you all night, but I'm aware. But yeah, hopefully you're enjoying the dram. And I've enjoyed all the drams, actually. I'm not really sure if I could pick a favourite. I did say 26 earlier. I think 26 is still up there for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no. Oh, no. 16.
16.
Yeah. The youngest, the cheapest. And I think any members that are into enjoying the peated whiskey, this dram at only £48 will be souped up like nobody's business.
I think so.
If I can come in quickly just on what's came on the screen there, is Aging Dead, so many great whiskies, something about age. A wise man, and it wasn't yourself, Jim, although you are a wise man. A wise man once told me, age is not the most important factor, but aging is. And I think that's something to really think about, because that's part of the reason why I love SMWS, is that it's all about what's going on in that cask. Distillery produces the spirit, SMWS decide what's going on, what type of cask it's going into, for example, if they're doing any re-racking or extra maturation. And it really shows that age is not always the most important factor. It does help sometimes, but if you put a bad spirit into a bad cask for any amount of time, you're going to get a bad result at the end. So it's about cask quality and knowing what you're doing with that, and you guys do a great job of that. So,
well, my 3 things are: age is no guarantee of quality.
Absolutely.
Colour is no guarantee of quality.
Yep.
Price, albeit a consideration, is no guarantee of quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it comes into, it's almost like that mantra, isn't it, guys? It's the same as the how do you drink your whiskey? Oh, it's darker. Does that mean it's better? And, we've all heard that. And it's, not necessarily at all. And I think it's opening the world up to that idea. And there's still a lot of sort of staunch believers in that. And we're trying to break down the barriers one by one, and as I say, SMWS, big advocate of that. So
I'd like to think also that if we have a lot of non-members who have tuned into Facebook, might enjoy the chat, the flavours and all that, and become members.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It'd be nice to think that this wee video has encouraged some people to join and experience these fabulous flavours and tastes.
I think the 12 flavour profiles is absolutely genius because it lays it out for you in a way that's easy to understand, it's easy to look for, it's easy to follow, whether you're on the website or in the venue. And for me, that it's that continuity that makes it an attractive proposal to be a member. So yeah, I agree with you totally. It's a spirit from the distillery, a limited edition before we finishes it. So this one, John, as far as I'm aware, this one was full maturation in the recharred hoggy. Occasionally, of course, at the society's prerogative, they will do some extra maturation or some different cask types. I mean, I've seen a couple of pork pipe bottlings before. I've seen some various different things going on. So it just depends what the society decide to do with the liquid that's in the cask.
I wonder if John was meaning in his question, is it a special spirit that went into the cask before it was sold to the society? Like, was it a different edition of spirit, or was it just a regular run of the peated spirit? I think that's
sorry, that's me, and I've misunderstood. My apologies. So no, it would have been a standard, if you can say standard, about any distillery really. It would be a distillery produced spirit, just as we would be doing. That cask would have been filled, and for example, on a daily basis at Glenturret, twice a week, we'll maybe fill between 8 to 12 casks. So it would have been one of those 8 to 12 casks that was filled.
Just a regular cask.
It would have been, yeah. As I say, the profile that we were looking for from the peat spirit from Glenturret at that point was for a particular thing. So as I say, because of the smoky profile of it, you would be looking for these are the casks we would be filling. Anyway, to not take on too much of that wood additive for maturation. So the fact it's a recharred hogshead is an interesting sort of addition, if you like, but it wouldn't have been something that we would have done in particular because it was going to become an SMWS bottling, if you like. As quite rightly say, every cask is a limited edition from SMWS. I mean, this one, I think, if I can see within my specs, is 253 bottles.
Yeah.
So you're looking at something that's not going to be around for too long. And with the other one, I can see that 208 bottles. And I think for me, I mean, I've only got a couple of SMWS bottles. I'm not as lucky as these guys here with all of them lined behind them. But I've actually got one of the previous 16 distillery bottlings and one of the 18-year-old 16 bottlings. So there has been lots of special editions, but nothing to do with the distillery per se in terms of what happened to the cask. The distillery produced the spirit, SMWS took it from there.
I think that's one of the things with society bottlings that makes them so special. You get one of these bottles and you try it and you open it, and then when it's gone, which can be quite sad, but in a way, it also opens your mind to some of the new flavors that are out there. I know certainly for me, and I don't know how it was for you guys, I wasn't initially drawn to peated whiskies, but through kind of trying more and more of them in tastings, I came around to them. And when you see what's possible, you start to get excited about trying a new whiskey and then having it and enjoying it and then trying the next one when it comes out.
The kind of ethos, the mantra that when it's gone, it's quite troubling sometimes when you find one that you really love. And that's happened to me numerous times where I've bought one and then I've quickly went and bought another one because it's still maybe been available. But then I end up chasing it around auction sites for the next couple of years, trying to find it again, because it's just impossible when there's only 200 bottles of something that you've found that you love. You think, oh my goodness, I'm never going to find that in another whiskey. So you end up chasing the numbers around. And I've actually even set up Google alerts for numbers to try and find them when they come back round on auction sites. It becomes quite all-encompassing.
In terms of exactly, I agree with what you're saying. And if people are enjoying the profile of this bottle, that sort of heavier, smoky, rather than the iodine element or the medicinal to a certain extent, the new release of our peat smoked 10-year-old is something that you could perhaps try if you enjoy the profile of this bottling. Our 10-year-old peat smoked is a big, heavy hitting smoky dram. But I agree with you, Nicola. I dare say, but behind me I've got a society bottling of Melville's Other Monster, and there's only about 25 to 30 ml left in that bottle, and I am so reluctant to drink the rest of it because it was such a cracking bottling. So yeah, totally know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, so before we finish for the night, I'm curious to know, I think we have a clear winner, but I've still got to ask the question. So favorite dram, and then your favorite food pairing of all the drams tonight.
My favourite dram was 1646. Not that I'm trying to get a free tour and a free tasting at Glenturret. I'm always into my peated whiskey. My favourite pairing was with the chili, the chili chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
I think my favourite was the 8823. I really enjoyed the it was just so well balanced. It was not it wasn't fighting with my palate or anything. It was just a nice balance, easy drinking, and I just liked the added differentiation that had just been finished in that rye cask. I just thought that was just a nice turn there, and I did enjoy it with the raisins, I must admit. But I also did enjoy the Guinness. I enjoyed the Guinness. Actually, I tried the Guinness with everything that I drank today, and it was lovely with them all.
Nicola, did you ever find out what a magic fruit salmon was?
Nobody helped me with that. I didn't get any help with a magic fruit salmon.
That's one for the research, I think.
Yeah.
I think I would probably. I'm always conscious not to be biased, simply because I work for a distillery and very lucky to do so. But I think I'm going to stick to my original and say that 26 159 was my favourite. When we got the pack, as you did a couple of days ago, the first time I had a nose of it, I just instantly was transported back to standing at a street food stall, and it really did something to me. So I think that would be my favourite. And unfortunately, the only pairings I kept until tonight, let's face it, I ate the rest of them, was the cheese and the chorizo. So I didn't try it with this one. But I think the yogurt coated raisins could be quite interesting because you're getting both a sweetness and a kind of creamy texture. So I think I'll try that later. But yeah, that would be my favourite.
I have to actually change my decision, and I know
the controversy,
but
controversial.
I'm team 16.46 as well. But Jim, you really nailed it on the pairing with the chili chocolate and the 26. So
Mads,
I have tried both. So
Mads, that's me and you, free tour, free tasting.
Absolutely. Let's get it in the diary whenever it's possible in the year 2026 or whenever it will be.
2026. I think it'll be later this year. We'll be able to go to distilleries later this year, I think.
Yeah, we certainly hope so.
Definitely. Well, thank you.
Something I've missed is seeing people at the distillery. I've only been there twice this year, and I went about 3 times last year. That was it. And you miss that interacting with the people, but you also miss the smell. I don't know about you guys, but when I go on holiday or I've not been at the distillery for a long time, I miss the smell, whether it's the smell in the mash house, that cereal kind of Horlicks smell, or if it's the Granny Smith apple in the turn room, or if it's, yeah. But Slanjava, guys. Cheers. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers.
Yes, thanks.
Slanjava,
Thanks, everyone.
guys, thanks very much.
Let's do the same
Cheers.
next week.
Take care.
Well, just a final bit of housekeeping, and thank you to everyone who's tuned in tonight, and to those of you who are tuning in after the fact. Please let us know which drams were your favourite. We're really keen to hear it. In terms of future events, we have our next virtual tasting scheduled for the 18th of March. That'll be with myself hosting, along with John McShane, Les Harrow, and we've got David Cover from Penderyn, who will be joining us as well. So if you haven't bought a pack yet, there's still plenty available, so make sure you join us for that one. In the meantime, if you're looking for something that's a bit closer to home, and you really enjoyed the 26, it is actually in next week's home dining experience, which is available for collection in Glasgow and Edinburgh, but is also available for UK mainland delivery. So that's available for delivery next week and the week after. It's a new spring menu, and the 26 is paired with baked beetroot salad with oats cheese croquettes. So really should be an excellent way to experience the whiskey and food, and that pairing has been curated by the team at SMWS Queen Street. So if you haven't had a chance to give home dining a try, take a look and see what you think. In the meantime, I guess there's nothing left to say, but thank you for joining us. Slanjava.